Okay, like I said, good to see everyone here. Good to see everyone. I am very glad to be here, very glad to have the opportunity to very glad to have the opportunity to be here. What I'm going to be doing here is oops, let's see here. Okay, okay, alrighty, all set. So anyway, like I said, glad to be here, and this week we are covering the liver, one of the most significant and most important organs that we have. Perhaps only, I guess, in the heart, if you really had to put it down to it. Those are pretty much the two most important organs after the... okay, let me see here. Oh. I was muted. I apologize. I'm sorry. So, yes, I was muted on the Zoom call. For those of you watching via the stream, via the live stream, good to see you. Thank you very much for being here. For those of you who are watching via the Zoom, glad to have you as well. Just sending out a reminder here. Okay, alrighty. So, yes, anyway, good to see you. If you're watching this for the first time, if you are on the live stream, if you're on Facebook, or if you're on, like the page, if you're on Facebook, once again, the page is The King's Bard. Same thing with the, my YouTube as well. YouTube and Facebook both go by the same name. If you're watching via Twitch, good to see you as well. I know that this isn't normally the stuff that you would see on Twitch, but hey, you know, if you drop by, good to see you. Anyway, this is, we're going over these things, and I would really like to see people interact and such, and so I would really very much like it if you have any questions at any point in time, please leave them in the chat. I will do my very best to answer them. I can see them on, be seeing that. So good to see you. And of course, if you're watching via the Zoom, then you can join in at any point, ask a question at any point. I will be asking for questions at the end of this. I'll give a chance for a Q&A, as I usually do. So anyway, yes. So before we begin, though, I do want to say that we are going to be I do. So that being said, let's go ahead and bow our heads, and we will dive right on in. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for your grace and for your mercy. Thank you for your love and everything you have done. Father, I ask that you would please be with us now. Please anoint us with your Spirit, glorify us with your grace, and I ask, Lord, that you would speak, that you would be heard, and that your wisdom would come through. And I ask, Lord, as well, in Jesus' precious name, we pray and ask these things, and thank you. Amen. Alrighty, it looks like for those of you who are watching the stream, I am having dropped frames for some reason. I'm not sure why that is, but that, yeah, it looks like that my frames are not doing well, so I hope that that fixes itself shortly. Anyway, without further ado, let's dive right on in with a couple of disclaimers, of course. The information in this presentation is for educational purposes only. It's not intended for the diagnosis, treatment, prevention, or cure of any disease. If you want to make any changes to your lifestyle, implement any regimen at all, and any remedies, regimen, etc., please consult with a qualified physician before doing so. If you are a moderate to heavy drinker or a user of hard drugs, especially a regular user of hard drugs, please do not try to quit on your own. You could experience potentially life-endangering side effects of withdrawal. You need to consult with a physician to set up a strategy and a schedule for medical supervision if they determine it to be necessary. So I just want to throw that in there as well. It's really important that that you do that, because your life could be in danger if you do that. So if you don't do that, so be wise. Consult with a physician. It's just the important thing to do. Of course, just to kind of rework this, a regimen is a program that works with multiple facets of a person to help facilitate healing. An infusion is a preparation where boiling water is poured over herbs. This is this is what most people would commonly call tea. And you would pour the water over the herbs rather than boiling the herbs in the water. A standard ratio is about 1 teaspoon of dried herb or 2 teaspoons of fresh herb to 1 cup of water. It's best if you leave this steeping for at least 20 minutes. Longer is just fine as well. A decoction, on the other hand, is a preparation where herbs is the same as the ratio for an infusion. Now, a syrup is a mixture of sugar dissolved into an infusion or a decoction. You can use this to do some things. For the liver, I don't really recommend the syrup for really anything, just because it's an extracted sugar, and those aren't particularly good for the liver. So, exercise wisdom again. But it is definitely something that is out there, and so, yeah. Liver issues are very important, and there are very few issues that are more significant than issues with the liver. Now, the liver is a very, very hardy organ. It does hundreds of tasks all around the body, and it is a very, very resilient organ. The liver is actually, you can survive without 80% of your liver. It's absolutely fantastic the way that it works. You can have a surgery where they will remove 80% of your liver, up to 80% of your liver, and your liver will grow back. It's absolutely astonishing. You can live with just 80% of your liver. That's just absolutely mind-boggling. But it still is a very, very significant organ, and sometimes we have toxins that build up from just life, or that we have bad habits, and those things can cause problems. Of course, infectious diseases and other things may also cause problems. So, regimen are indicated. Now, these are so far, and I want to mention, by the way, that these right now, the major points that we're going to be focusing on are the physical facet of things, because by and large, the liver is, or well, all these regimen that we have covered, with the 2 out of the 3 regimen that we've covered. Last week was digestive health, and this week is the liver. So 2 out of the 3 that we've talked about so far have been just purely physical, changing habits that are not healthy. Same thing here. With the others, it's a little bit more difficult to incorporate certain things. But a regimen in this case is focusing mainly on the physical side of things, because that's what's hurting. But we cannot forget the mental and relational aspects of a human being either. And it makes things a whole lot easier when you're making those lifestyle changes, when you're doing those things, if you have people to go along with you, people to be accountable to, and so on. Especially if you're deciding that, I need to make some serious changes. I don't want to drink alcohol anymore. I don't want to use drugs anymore. I don't want to smoke anymore. Whatever it might be. People are a really big part of that, and so I just want to throw that out there. And of course, there's a lot of mental work that goes in there as well. Cognitive behavioral therapy is, that's really, really important, and really a helpful thing to rely on. So anyway, just want to kind of throw that out there as well. We do want to make sure that we don't ignore the other parts of of therapy components for the physical facet of this issue, which is the major issue here. The lifestyle components, once again, and I want to really state this clearly here. When it comes to dealing with liver issues, abstain drugs is really the number one thing that you can do. If you are partaking of any of those things, you're dealing with some real. There's some. I say that with a caveat, once again, especially with alcohol and illicit drugs. Please make sure you're doing so under doctor's supervision. Tobacco, same idea. Make sure that you consult with your physician to know how to do it best for you, but definitely, these things need to get out of your life immediately, as soon as is possible, because they're, especially with alcohol and illicit drugs, if you're having liver issues, those are probably the culprit. Um, and or if they're not the culprit, say for example it may be an infectious disease, they're certainly not helping the problem. And tea and coffee as well really understand the whole function of caffeine and what it does and what it is. So no, caffeine and coffee, tea, those things are not really a good choice. Um, and I would avoid also foods. I didn't really specify this, but dairy products of all sorts out, um, because they have casomorphins, which are an opioid, and those are pretty nasty for the liver to deal with as well. Um, and so avoid those seasonings as much as I love them, right? I can testify. I love both of those, but they're really important to avoid in this context. So just abstain from harmful substances. We want to make sure we're also drinking plenty of water, filtered water, or even better if you can get it, soft water. Those are really, really, really important. In fact, that's probably one of the best things. Drink plenty of water, and I'll mention this a little bit later, but I want to at the very least, and so you want to make sure that you do your very best to help that. Eat plenty of fresh leafy greens and whole fruits. Beets and bitter greens in particular are especially useful because they help with the liver. Beets are phenomenal. They're just amazing for the liver. They're probably one of the most significant. Yeah. Okay, let me see. Ba, 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 ba. It looks like I'm having trouble with... I apologize for that if you're watching the stream. Hopefully the video will capture all of that. Anyway, going on, we also want to make sure that we get plenty of... is fully aware of what you're doing and that you're exercising appropriately according to your condition. You don't want to overwork yourself, but at the same time you also don't want to underwork. You know, not too much and not too little. All right, you want to make sure that you're getting the best that you can get of everything that you need. High in protein and high in fat. Now, I don't mean avoid eating protein altogether or avoid eating fat altogether, because neither of those things is physically possible. Even if you went around eating nothing but like pineapples, they still have protein, they still have fat. If you were to go around eating mangoes or apples or blueberries or blackberries or any other fruit, they still have fats, they still have proteins. It's not very much, I'll grant you, but they still have those. And so it's physically impossible to do that. But you want to avoid eating foods and flesh foods of all sorts. So that's meats and fish in particular, and also eggs. Dairy, of course, is also kind of out. Isolate and whey protein and things like that. But all protein powders, those are also out the window. You don't want that with your liver. If your liver has problems, then yeah, that and liver issues. Same thing with meat substitutes. You also want those out. And really, you don't want to in fat. Again, I want to make sure your electrolytes are properly maintained. And avoid, this is really big, avoid processed sugars and processed grains. So no white bread. Wheat bread instead, and even better, whole grain, brown rice and things like that. The lower protein grains are generally, with the exception of oats. Oats are a little bit different, but the lower protein grains are usually the thing to go with, or the more easily digestible ones. And of course, processed sugars, including honey, I'm sad to say, and such. If you have to add it in, then really avoid it. Even though it's not necessarily unhealthy, it may be a perfectly fine whole sugar, but because you have a specific circumstance here, in this case dealing with the liver, it's not really healthy for your specific case. You want to avoid that just because it's not a good idea. It's not good for the liver to have lots of added sugars. Instead, high fiber foods and high complex carbohydrates to digest. These are things that are especially useful. Plums, figs, whole grain oats, so whole rolled oats, oat flour, whole oat groats, steel cut oats, and oats are easy to digest. They're all they have a healthy amount of protein and a healthy amount of fat, but they're also really easy to digest, and they've got tons and tons and tons of fiber. So these are especially useful, and they're also useful because, well, I'll explain that a little bit later. And of course, beets, once again, are useful because not only are they high fiber, but they are also, once again, very useful for the liver. In addition to all these, you should discuss with your doctor anyway, but you may need to avoid certain foods other than this, more specific ones than the ones that I've mentioned here. You may need to avoid certain things altogether. You may need to incorporate certain things. There may be certain, it's an individual case thing. It's not something that I can just say, oh, well, just everyone needs to do this. So, anyway, to rate this, please ask your questions. If you are on the stream, ask them via chat. If you are on Zoom, you can ask them at any point. So I want to, so that being said, herbal components. Herbal components are really significant. And they will vary from case to case, but in particular, there are a couple of, and these are generally effective even for those other issues, but in particular, milk thistle and dandelion are the two herbs that I'm thinking of that are absolutely phenomenal. There is very little that, when it comes to the liver, that they won't help, at least, excepting perhaps liver cancer, which is a totally different thing. Milk thistle is a powerful liver tonic and has been shown in studies to halt and in some cases even reverse liver damage caused by alcohol or drugs. So it's absolutely amazing some of the stuff that the studies have shown with these things. The milk thistle has actually been shown to, it has chemical components in there that they found stimulate the reproduction of the duplication of liver cells, so that liver cells will actually regenerate, and it can actually reverse in some cases milk thistle as one of the #1 things that you can have, especially for people with issues with alcohol and drugs. Now, of course, it is not a license to continue on with those things. You need to quit those things before you start using milk thistle or any other treatment, indeed, any medical treatment or any herbal remedy or anything like that. You want to make sure that you're stopping the habits that are causing the issue before you really get going with it. Now, of course, if you're in the middle, these, you want to make sure you're at least on the road to stopping completely. Milk thistle will help with that, and so will dandelion. Dandelion is also an effective liver tonic, and it helps work on the kidneys, and it provides potassium as well. So one of the things that the liver does, and this is really important, the liver is a very, very important organ when it comes to eliminating toxins from the system. The liver does it, the kidneys do it, and your skin does it, as well as your colon. So you want to make sure that all of those are working. And when your liver isn't working properly, the other eliminatory organs are also going to suffer because they're going to be taking on some of that increased load. They're going to be sharing the load a bit more with the liver. And so you want to make sure that instead of just focusing on the liver, you're focusing on the whole system. Right? You want to make sure that your wings too can be, not always, but usually when it comes to eliminating toxins, it's going to be your skin, your colon, your kidneys, and your liver that are going to be the big things. And if your liver is suffering, you need to make sure that whatever you're doing, you're taking care of everything else as well. And so the potassium, which is a very valuable electrolyte that we don't find much in our diets in the Western world. So it's really important, whatever you're doing that. You're making sure that you're taking care of all these other things as well. So dandelion is really important. I highly recommend it for in pretty much all herbal cases. Of course, there are always going to be there are other herbs out there which we'll talk about post haste. Infusions of chamomile, ginger, cardamom, and turmeric may all be useful. Chamomile is a liver tonic. It's also effective in 1,000 other ways. I mean, it's one of the most useful herbs on the planet. Also one of the most humbles. But it is an incredibly powerful and an astonishingly useful herb. And so an infusion of chamomile is particularly useful for this, as well as ginger, which can help with the stomach and also with the kidneys. It can the colon as well. An infusion of ginger may very well be useful. Cardamom is also very useful because it can help if you you're dealing with toxins and things like that, or if you're dealing with toxins, and generally you are when it comes to liver issues. If you have issues with your liver, you're likely going to things like caffeine from certain things, and so you want it's very, very important. It's a very, very useful herb for that, and so cardamom may help to help your liver to give just a little bit of a push so that your liver is able to do its job at least a little bit more, while it's also on the way to being healed. Turmeric is especially bile, which is a liver secretion. And it also has protective effects against certain things, and it has lots of antioxidants and such, and so it can help protect the liver as well as other things. So it's really, really a significant herb as well to use. A decoction of roasted dandelion root. Notice I said roasted. You don't want to do a decoction of the raw. That stuff's gross. The roasted stuff tastes like coffee, but it's an alternative to coffee. So this is what you use, at least that's the way that I would recommend it. Nettles are also very useful. Now, most people wouldn't necessarily think about nettles as being something edible, never mind useful as an herb for the liver. And it doesn't directly affect the liver. The thing with nettles is that they are extremely nutritious. They have they are well known for being a very, very nutritious herb that provides a lot of nourishment in times especially of convalescence. And so when you're recovering from something, nettles are especially useful. Now, I don't recommend bone broths because it's animal protein and having issues, but nettles may be used as a broth, in broths or in soups. They can also be used in an infusion when you combine it with oats. Oats are also very, very useful, and we don't usually have savory porridges anymore. That's kind of a thing of the past, at least in America. I've experienced we don't usually have savory porridges. Savory oatmeal ain't really done anymore, although it was pretty much the only way you ate oatmeal way back when. It is very useful as a nutritive, and when you combine that with nettles, very, very useful. It can help get a lot of nutrients to your system that you wouldn't otherwise necessarily get. So nettles are actually quite useful. Sometimes laxatives may be in order. Things like marshmallow roots, slippery elm, and so on, or prunes, plums, fig may use that as well. On the other hand, mild laxatives, if those things don't really work and enemas aren't really appropriate, then you're going to want to use mild laxatives like licorice root, or if in the cases where things get really, really extreme, perhaps senna or some other very powerful laxative. I do not generally recommend those. My personal philosophy when it comes to natural remedies of all kinds is go with what does the least harm for the most good first. So if don't give the most powerful thing. Cathartics are a thing of the 1800s and the 1600s and the 1400s. You don't want to use those unless there is no other option. And generally speaking, the enemas are really the the best option that you're going to get with that. So I don't really recommend using cathartics at all. My school may disagree with me, but I disagree with them, and I have it on pretty good authority, namely the Bible and other writings on health, that those things aren't necessarily the most wise things. So, yes, laxatives may sometimes be in order. Bulking laxatives are pretty much the ideal. If those fail, laxatives like licorice root may be used, or in the most extreme cases where an enema is not appropriate, and bulking laxatives, those are going to be your number one thing to do. And once again, that's because, and so if your liver is having problems, your colon is likely going to have problems as well, and so you're going to have most likely a buildup of toxins there. Yeah, so and it's really important to consider those things, and to keep those things in mind. Looking at, instead of just focusing on the liver, you're focusing on the liver, the kidneys, the colon, and the skin as well. And we'll talk about the skin coming up here when we move, which is right now actually, to hydrotherapy. Hydrotherapy, using water of different temperatures and so on, is a really, really significant method of natural remedies, and my personal favorite, probably the single most powerful system of natural remedies known to mankind. Not even probably, it just straight out is. It's more powerful than herbal remedies or, well, lifestyle. But it has more potential and more potential strength than any other system. Now, specific applications for the liver are going to be different in each case. Just like with herbs, you may have to use certain things such as, for example, you might use a hot pack over the hot compress over the kidneys, hot compress over the liver, or over the gallbladder, over the colon, to be useful. Tonic applications are very useful if you take care not to overuse cool or cold applications, or being a tonic, but at the same time, when it comes to people who are really, really, how shall I say, ill, they're not particularly constitutionally strong, you really want to use contrast tonic applications rather than just straight out cold tonic applications, because of the way that the action, not the reaction that our body has to cool and cold, which is what you want, but because of the action that cool and cold have on our bodies, which is the opposite of what we want. It's an atonic action and a tonic reaction. So you want to make sure that contrast applications are used rather than, at least overall, rather than cool or cold applications. Contrast applications, contrast baths, contrast showers, and so on are really, really useful in these cases. You, of course, as I mentioned before, enemas for cleansing the bowels. If you've got, unless, of course, there is the possibility that there will be, that there may be contraindications, and in those cases, again, we already talked about that. So, when it comes to hydrotherapy, and I think I put it in here. I did not for some reason. Okay, I want to cover this here really quickly. The skin is the other big organ when it comes to eliminating wastes and eliminating toxins. The skin. When it comes to the skin, you want to make sure that you're using lots of exfoliation. Of course, within healthy amounts. You don't want to damage your skin. But if you have if you have liver issues and things like that, your skin's going to be working overtime. So you want to make sure to help it along as much as you can. Start scrubbing down, right? Start scrubbing down, exfoliate, exfoliate, exfoliate. You want to make sure that you're cleaning your skin. You want to make sure that you're allowing the skin the opportunity to breathe and to get out. And this is where the cardio exercise really comes into play. Give your skin a chance to breathe, to exercise, to push that stuff out, to sweat. Get yourself that opportunity. That really, really helps. And, of course, once you've done that, then go clean off. Make sure all those toxins don't get reabsorbed. Make sure you clean yourself off, scrub your keep everything open, right? That's really, really important. Of course, also increasing circulation to the skin using friction. You can use bare hands for that, or a sheet also. Of course, I will say it can do some harm to your skin. So a towel shouldn't be your number one go-to. It really should be kind of a sheet that you use. And it's really a good idea after you've finished your contrast bath or contrast shower, when you're drying off, to rub down, get that nice friction in there, increase the circulation to the skin. And of course, remember, with contrast applications, always, always, always finish on cold, especially for tonic applications. Tonic contrast applications always finish on cool or cold. Obviously, you don't want to overdo. Never finish on hot. Always finish on cool or cold. So that's really, really important. So just keep that in mind. And once you've finished on cold, once you've finished that, you step out, dry it off at least a little bit, then rub yourself down with a sheet. Or while you're still in the shower or something, rub yourself down. Make sure that you have a nice, in addition to exfoliating, make sure you also, exfoliating will help with that. But also rub yourself down with a sheet. It helps that elimination. It helps that stuff get out there. So those are really, really important factors when it comes to stuff done while the liver is recovering. Sometimes, in addition to all those other things, sometimes fomentations over the affected areas, such as over the liver or over the kidneys, may be appropriate. Or over always, in this sense, always be done unless there is a contraindication, which there may be. But generally speaking, this kind of fomentation, you're going to want a cold rub in between changes. Sometimes ice water, sometimes cool water. Just cold water, not necessarily ice water. It all depends on the strength of the individual. It depends on all sorts of things, but it should be done with a cold rub in between changes, unless you have contraindications otherwise. A warm or a hot foot bath may also be especially useful. Foot baths are amazing. They are probably the single most ubiquitous, and they're the chamomile, if you will, of hydrotherapy. There's sometimes they help when there's no reason it doesn't appear that it should, right? Sometimes a hot foot bath just kind of, it's not even a the word has completely slipped my mind. A placebo. It's not a placebo. Don't know quite how it helps, but sometimes it might even be placebo. But a warm or a hot foot bath in this case may be especially useful because it does act on the kidneys and on the liver. And so you want to make sure that a warm or a hot foot bath may also be very useful in this case, in combination with other hydrotherapy that may be going on at the time. So, yes, that is about all that I have as far as presentation. So let's get some question and answers. If you're watching via the stream, then please go ahead and, if you have any questions, please start typing them now so that I'll be able to see them. Meanwhile, I'll look at the Zoom. Are there any questions from Zoom? Okay. Doesn't seem as though there are. Alrighty then. Well, and I'm not sure I'm going to have any questions from the stream at all. Once again, all this stuff that I've mentioned here, or an alcoholic, please consult with your physician before you make any decisions like this. Please do. It's really important that you do that. It's the wise thing to do, and it's the safe thing to do. You don't want to have delirium tremens or any other nasty side effects of such things. That being said, if you have any, if there are no questions, then now we can go ahead and close out. I'll close out with a word of prayer in a minute. I just want to say, if you're watching via the stream, good to see everyone. If you're watching via the pre-recorded video, or not pre-recorded, the recorded video, hopefully it's a sight better than the stream quality. which doesn't seem to be doing so well. I apologize for that. Hopefully the video will be better. And the if you're watching via either of those, then please like this video. If you're on Facebook, please share it. If you're on YouTube, please well, I mean, still share it, but like the page if you're on Facebook, or subscribe to my channel. Actually, please, it would be nice if you did. Again, the page and YouTube channel are The King's Bard, and please check that out. It's the same on both. If you're watching on now would be the time to speak, or forever hold your peace until next week, I suppose. Okay. Alrighty. In that case, we will go ahead and move on, or close out for this evening. So let's go ahead and close out with a word of prayer, and I shall see you guys next week. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for your grace, for your mercy, for your love, and for your infinite gift of Jesus Christ. It's such an amazing thing that you have given us, and I just ask, Lord, that you would please continue to be with us. Fill us with your Spirit, Lord, as we go our separate ways. Please keep us, Lord, as Christ be lifted up in our hearts and in our minds. And I ask, Lord, that everyone under the sound of my voice, whoever hears it, I ask that they would be drawn to you, and myself as well, that we would come closer and closer to you as we approach the great final day when you shall appear. Thank you so much. Alrighty. Thank you very much, everybody, and I